of Education. The board began its meetings today at 4 p.m. with a work session on literacy in Jefferson County Public Schools, including the Bellarmine Literacy Project, extended learning, the Summer Boost program, and the kindergarten readiness camps. We then continued at 5 o'clock with a review of both thoughts about the W.E.B. Du Bois Academy, which is under consideration for the 2017-18 school year here at JCPS. And we heard from our colleagues in Lexington who run and attend the Carter G. Woodson School there, both very productive work sessions. I want to give a heads up. We will have an executive session at the end of the public board meeting tonight. And with that introduction, I'd like to ask that we have our traditional moment of silence and call out as we do this to everyone's attention that Michael Moses passed over the weekend, who was a business representative and a 27-year employee with the SEIU, and for many of those years he worked representing JCPS employees. So we want to remember him in our moment of silence. Let's begin the moment of silence. Thank you. At this point, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to ask Board Member Chuck Hattaway to read our vision statement.
All Jefferson County Public School students graduate prepared, empowered, and inspired to reach their full potential and contribute as thoughtful, responsible citizens of our diverse, shared world.
Thank you, Chuck. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Terry Robinson to bring us our recognitions and resolutions. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. Dr. Hargan's Board Chair David Jones Jr. and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we begin with a student demonstration of learning from Valley High School students, Jonathan Dercott, Justin Jones, and Ernest McGee, who created a company called Valley Tech to build websites and provide social media and other technical support. In June, they were honored as National Young Entrepreneurs for their innovation and skills at the annual EY Entrepreneur of the Year Awards event sponsored by Ernest and Young. The student entrepreneurs were participants in the Mayor's Summer Works program, which offered the students a real-world application of the skills they received in the classroom, as well as on-the-job experience and networking tools that would help them reach their full potential. Tonight, the students will give a brief overview of their company and the skills and knowledge they have gained to facilitate their business endeavor. Students, please come forward to begin your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Justin Jones. These are my colleagues, Jonathan Dercott and Ernest McGee, and we are Valley Tech LLC. At Valley Tech, we have learned different web development skills and skills beyond that to help us within the classroom and other skills within networking. And we have helped different clients, such as the West Louisville Chamber of Commerce, which we will talk more about.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Dercott, and like Justin Jones said, we have studied in web development and real world learning skills throughout the summer. Even before our young and upcoming business, Valley Tech LLC, we have already planned to expand beyond our work fields, such as entrepreneurship, networking, classroom, and people skills.
Hello, I'm Ernest McGee. and in the future we but also teach the younger men and women a successful career. So we also hope to launch technology in Louisville by doing that with our web development skills and our coding skills.
Thank you and good evening.
Will you, are there any, hold on 1 second. Are there any questions for our students? If not, I have one. Chris, go ahead.
I'm just kind of curious. I'm in the IT field as well, and you're talking about doing web development. What type of web development are you doing? Are you using some type of content management system, or are you developing an HTML5, or what type of coding are you guys working
Yes, sir. We do all of our coding through HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript, and we work together most of the time at the community center, AMPed, Academy of Music Development, music production and educational development. But we also can work from home on an online service platform called Cloud9.
And kind of curious, out of each of your all's viewpoints on this, how did you become interested in this particular type of field, and how did you teach yourself, how to code? How did that come about?
Well, it all started, like, we was in high school, right? And so, the school and Miss Johnson, they picked out, I would say, about 17 students to do a class on Treehouse and how to learn how to make websites and develop them. And only a few graduated, and only a few made it.
Okay. Great. If I could, sorry, do you want to add to that? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, like he said, I was in class when I got called down to the counselor's office about this program. So we went to the meetings and we did what we had to do to get out of her. We basically graduated, and the people who was promised enough to run a business. So that's how it all started.
Great. I wonder if you could just say a few words about the Ernst & Young competition experience, because I think that's a pretty big deal, if I understand it right. Just briefly tell us what that involved.
Basically, we got called down to Cincinnati about a reward we earned. So when we got down there, we didn't know what to do, since this was our first award we had. So when he called us up on the stage, we was shocked. So
We were quite new to it.
yeah,
I bet you were. And how many others were there? Was it 50 people or 500?
it was
At least 500.
At least 500. That's what I thought. I mean, it's a big fancy deal, right?
Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah. So, all right, thank you. We're very proud of you. And I mean, I know a little bit about the Ernst & Young Awards, and it's unusual for a Louisville company to receive an award. It's a big regional competition. It's not just, kind of the Golden Triangle, including Cincinnati. It's a multi-state, big deal competition. So we're very proud of you, and we thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, wait, I did a bad thing. I ignored Ms. Porter.
No, just real quickly, thanks for being here tonight, but what we know for real is that we all get places with the help of someone. So I wanted to recognize David Christopher, who has been with you along the way. Mr. Christopher, would you please stand up, because you care about these young men and all the other young men when I've been to your graduation services for working. So thank you for the community member that gives back. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Sorry, Mr.
Real
Mark, Dr.
quick,
Marshall.
I don't know if Dr. Hargan's going to say this. This is also part of the Males of Color Resolution programs as well, to make sure we expose our males of color inside of our schools to experiences like this. And I definitely want to recognize the principal here at Valley Tech. But this is also under the Males of Color Resolution. So I want everybody to make sure they knew that as well.
Great. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Fantastic. Back to Ms. Robinson. Thank you all.
Board Member Chuck Hadaway and Area Superintendent Glenn Beatty, please come forward to extend congratulations to the Valley High School students. Joining in the recognition is Homeschool Coordinator Monique Johnson, Mentor David Christopher with AMPED, and Principal Rob Stevenson. I'd also like to ask the parents and family members of these outstanding students to please stand and be recognized. Parents. Next, we have the honor of recognizing Erica Goins-Brooks, a teacher at Western Day Treatment, for being named a 2015-16 Outstanding Teacher of the Year by the Kentucky Educational Collaborative for State Agency Children. The collaborative was created in 1992 to work with state agencies, school districts, and local programs to address the needs of state agency children and to ensure they receive a high-quality education. Vice Chair Diane Porter and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Alicia Everett, please come forward to recognize Ms. Goins-Brooks. Joining in the recognition is her principal, Heather Moss. Tonight, we also have the pleasure of bestowing recognition upon Western Day Treatment, which was designated as an alternative program of distinction by the Kentucky Department of Education for its innovative strategies for providing high-quality educational services to students. The program is a joint partnership between 7 county services and Jefferson County Public Schools, where students receive mental health treatment services and educational programming. Vice Chair Diane Porter and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Alicia Everett, please come forward to recognize Principal Heather Moss. Dr. Hargens and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a motion to receive tonight's recognitions? Ms. Porter moves it. Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Hadaway, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is the question of approving the meeting agenda. Is there a vote to approve the agenda? Okay, Ms. Porter moves. Ms. Horn seconds. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next comes the question of approving the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 9th regular meeting? Ms. Brady moves. All right, Dr. Wilmer seconds. All in favor? Also passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we're through with the formalities. Dr. Hargens, we'll turn to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair Jones and members of the board, and thank you for the opportunity to present the superintendent's report. I'd like to begin by welcoming Dr. Lisa Herring, our new Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Herring has 20 years of experience, including experience as a Deputy Superintendent and a Chief Academic Officer. So welcome, Dr. Herring. On Monday at 6 p.m., we held a tax rate hearing required per KRS 160.470 for the purpose of hearing public comments regarding a proposed 2017 general fund tax levy of 70.8 cents on real property and 71 cents on personal property. So remember, this lower rate, 70.8 cents, provides for the 4% revenue increase, which is the maximum allowable by law. You are not leaving money on the table per your authority by law. Asking taxpayers for more than a 4% revenue increase would be subject to a voter recall. Many years in contrast, we are asking the board to increase the tax rate, the authority given to you in the law to receive the maximum 4% revenue increase. So not this year, because with the 70.8 cent rate, we will be getting the maximum 4%, and that's an action item. I'd like to talk a little bit about the first day, and each year the first day task force meets soon after the start of school to debrief and look at ways to continually improve the process and build potential contingency plans for unexpected occurrences. So this year, Dr. Razor, Brent West, Allison Martin, and I met the morning of day 2. This year, as we all know, efforts to evacuate students stuck on Interstate 71 showed the first day team's ability to be nimble and innovative, but also created an opportunity for a new set of contingencies to create protocols around. The after-action review yield takeaways that will now become standard operating procedures, the most notable of which is we will send staff with water to the scene of any stalled bus that has been sitting for 30 minutes or more. Immediately upon notification of a blocked or closed road, we will identify the number of buses and students impacted and begin working with emergency personnel to plan to evacuate if the case so dictates. In other words, we will not wait to see how long the buses will be stalled, but instead we will put a deadline on ourselves based upon location and conditions on when the evacuation will begin if necessary. We will notify the schools, who will notify the parents of the students on the bus. If no one is at the school, the compound will notify the parents. Tonight, I'm asking in the consent agenda per state regulation that you accept Dr. Razor's assurances that following industry standard best practices, we are doing everything in our power to provide the best data security possible in the district. In addition, I asked Dr. Razor to provide Dean Dorton with a confidential briefing of our data security protocols. Mr. Tenza responded that they are reasonable and appropriate, and Mr. Tenza will be verifying their implementation. We are furthermore asking our auditors for their feedback if there's any way to even strengthen our existing security procedures. You will recall that the Chief Business Officer position was a position that was added to my team. One of the performance responsibilities of Chief Business Officer Tom Hudson, it's actually number 8 on his job description, is to monitor employee investigations from initiation through final outcome and to monitor the assignment of employee investigations to the proper investigation function. As part of the new role as CBO, starting in March of 2016, JCPS and CBO Hudson commenced a review of our ability to investigate claims of adult misconduct. We are using not only internal resources and personnel to conduct this review, but also our outside counsel, Middleton Rutlinger. As a result of this review, we have already taken at least one personnel action based on a review of past investigations. We're in the process of reviewing 14 other past investigations that involve student injuries and alleged employee misconduct, some of which go back to 2005. Middleton Rutlinger recently suggested that they engage an expert to work with the firm to review those cases. Middleton has engaged a retired former FBI agent on our behalf to work on this project. As a result of the initial review, we will be putting 8 to 9 of the 14 employees on paid leave as Middleton conducts a thorough file review and an additional interview of witnesses. Of course, we will be transparent with any final personnel actions. The message is clear. We have high expectations for the behavior of our employees. We will tolerate nothing less than our students being treated with the utmost respect and care always. I appreciate the board's patience as we work through our new board policy protocol. The need for revisions or creations of policy are driven by management, the board, and/or KSBA. The revised or new policy is reviewed by the appropriate chief, by legal if necessary, and then by cabinet before being put on the Friday update for board members for your initial review. That is followed by a first reading and then a second reading and approval. I am recommending, Chair Jones, that item 9W on the consent calendar be withdrawn. The item revises board policies 03.11 and 03.21 related to hiring policies for certified and classified staff. Additional adjustments to the proposed language are needed, and this item will be revised and brought forward through the protocol, hopefully for a first reading on September 27th. This item is not time sensitive. So in addition to the changes recommended by KSBA, there has been a suggestion made to amend policy 01.61 related to the powers and duties of the Board of Education to require the permanent retention of electronic recordings of board meetings. This recommendation was not included in the draft provided to the board prior to the meeting. The changes recommended by KSBA are time sensitive, and it is required by law to be in compliance with statute by August of each year. So I'm recommending that the board pass item 9Z as submitted, and then we will take the recommendation for the additional change through the protocol and bring that policy back to you for another reading. So Chair Jones, I'm recommending for approval the consent agenda later in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. So just to make sure I understand the consent agenda, it is as published through the portal, with the exception of item 9W,
Correct.
which is withdrawn, but everything else is as presented ahead of time.
Correct.
Good. Okay, thank you. Very good. Next, we'll move on to action items. The only action item is the recommendation to approve the tax rate for FY 16-17. There are no speakers on this topic. We held a public hearing yesterday on the topic of tax rate. Dr. Hargens, would anyone like to say anything more about this?
Well, what we're recommending is approval, as I said, of 70.8 cents on real property and 71 cents on personal property. And I would just reiterate again that that gives the district the full 4% revenue increase allowable by law.
Okay, thank you. Are there board member questions or comments on this? Okay, I have just one myself. I think we had a great hearing yesterday. I think it is good fortune and a reflection of the fact that the economy has strengthened in Louisville, for which we're grateful. A strong economy creates rising property values, which make it possible for us to fund our schools without raising the tax rate. And in this year, actually, we're lowering it a little bit. So that's a very good thing. We did receive a letter from the Metro Chamber of Commerce calling attention to the fact that even though the rate is going down, there still will be an increase of millions of dollars in taxes paid by the property owners in Jefferson County, and we all understand that. We had a really good discussion of it yesterday. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of 70.8 as the tax rate. Chris moves, Linda seconds. All in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have information items, of which there are none. Next comes the consent calendar, which we just discussed. There are no speakers on consent calendar items, and I believe there are no items that board members would like to call down. Thank you all for the time you put in since this was published and getting your questions answered. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Okay, Chuck moves, Steph seconds. All in favor? Okay, that also passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We next have a tie bid, tie bid award, which Vice Chair Porter will aid us by drawing lots to determine who is the winner of the tie bid.
The item is for laminating film. And it goes to ACCO Brands USA LLC, ACCO.
Thank you, Vice Chair Porter. Is there a motion to award the tie bid as drawn? Okay, Mr. Brady moves. Chuck seconds. All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we come to the board planning calendar. And on this item, I'd like to ask your indulgence to let me open it. I missed the last meeting, for which I apologize, but I understand that we had a scheduled work session on the topic of how to improve the community conversations, the opportunities for community input and interaction. And my understanding is that due to the press of other matters, that work session got compacted to the point where we really didn't get the work done that we wanted to. And I guess I'd like to throw out that issue as one on which I hope we could have just a brief discussion to get some feedback on how quickly we need to move that discussion forward. So, Lisa, you want to?
Sure, yeah. I had raised the question a couple times, a request to have this conversation. And my thought is I think I would like to find a way for us to do a better job of getting community input rather than just at the tail end of meetings when everyone's exhausted, and to have an opportunity for us to hear from the community more. And I wonder if there's a way to do that by possibly having some conversation about compacting meeting time, so more time in work sessions, more time in community conversations, less time in formal meetings, and I'm just interested in hearing others' thoughts and scheduling a conversation about that.
Yeah, I would say that the other thing that came up in the discussion with Vice Chair Porter and Dr. Hargens about this was we've had some some excellent examples of community conversations in the strategy process where we had a number of very large gatherings that were facilitated and worked very well. We've also had the superintendent summits on discipline that I think both the district leadership, the board, and the community members found productive. But we've also all been to our own community conversations and have found them sometimes to not be attended well enough. It's hard to get the timing right to get people out. And I think also we just have found that the benefit of holding the school board meetings in the schools has been great. There have been many advantages to us of getting to go around the community and put names with faces and visual images, but meeting in those big gymnasiums is not conducive to great interaction, at least for people with older ears. It is very difficult. So we're looking for ways to get better, and apologies, are there other thoughts and particularly some guidance on, my sense is the board wants to move this along and see continuous improvement in this, so we ought to schedule time, but give me some feedback. Steph?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I got a lot out of last year's strategic planning sessions that were held at various locations. I think that holding we've gotten much better too also at our planning calendar to have our agendas for things that need to be approved and our consent like we did today. We're getting through things that if we are getting a lot of questions answered. And is there a chance that we could look at having one actual traditional board meeting where these agenda items could be in condensed because they're the same.
Yep.
And so then on that alternate week day, we could do something more, where we're actually, participating, listening to larger groups of community members, so we're actually getting the feedback we need to then bring the decision to the table the following, meetings.
Yep.
So it's just a little turning it upside down a little bit. It seems like it could be productive because we're becoming a higher, better efficient, more efficient board.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Other thoughts? Chris?
I have found that our community conversations that we've held individually and within our own districts are pretty well attended the first go around, but when it comes to the early spring or late winter, not so much. And I think part of that is possibly because,
Move that closer.
I'm sorry. Sorry, there you go. Part of that is possibly because of the fact that, you know, we're having to deal with inclement weather. I know I've had at least one community conversation that got canceled because of inclement weather, and we had to reschedule that, which is an extra cost. As I said, I think that in the springtime, especially at the beginning of the year, there is a lot of interest in that, and those traditionally for me have been better attended. But at that secondary go-around, perhaps that could be something that could be combined with other board members within certain areas, you know, not maybe neighboring areas. Just a suggestion as far as that, if we were to do that, or just have the one in the beginning of the year.
Chuck?
Well, I
Right.
was just going to comment, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. I had talked to Lisa about this, possibly trying to set up some kind of conversation similar to the format that Jerry Abramson used to use, where we have our school people who actually are in charge of these functions and operations there, and the superintendent there, and the board members there, and then people come and then dismiss so that they can go to the people they want to talk to and bring issues individually, so that everybody's not listening to everything all at the same time. It can be just by your specific issue, and then that person can leave. But I don't know. I just thought that might be something that we would consider.
Now, I was going to echo that, because I was actually thinking about that too in my Parks and Recreation service. Sometimes when we would have meetings about a project, it was nice to have the engineering department over here and then landscaping over here. And I didn't realize it came from Mayor Abramson, but when going to those mayor, what were they called?
Community conversation.
They were community conversations.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were.
How creative. So I remember that you had different departments that were around, and it was very helpful because the attendees had a singular focus a lot of times of who they wanted to talk to. So that's what I would suggest. And I would just, I praise the initiative to hear more from the community and find creative ways to do that efficiently.
Okay. Steph, go ahead.
One more. I kind of watched Chuck and Linda. They're going to like the Fairdale Fair, and you're doing something Southwest. So I scheduled the Middletown Fun Festival, you know, which I thought would be very different. So I mean, yeah, it would be fun, and I'll be there for a certain time. Donna is going to join me, so it's Friday night. But to do something like that was just a little bit out of the box. But we'll be there to listen and just talk and see what, you know, people want to tell us. So I think that's neat too, just kind of something different.
Okay. So, Diane, do you want to say anything? No.
I think that each district may be a little bit different. I've attended the meetings that Mayor Abramson had, and my only concern would be our staff asking them to come out multiple nights. We talk about now how we hate to have them out so many nights doing things. So if that's a concept that we as a board decide to go to, I would hope that we would not do that in 7 districts, because I think that's totally unfair to our staff. And I think that we have been creative, whether it's a fair or whether it's an activity, whatever the case may be. And the goal is to be available in our communities. I mean, so for that matter, we could sit ourselves in a school and be there in the afternoon. I just want to, again, respect the fact that we have staff that come in very early most days and have activities also. So if that's a concept that we are considering, I would just hope that we wouldn't do it 7 times in the course of the year. And I would also hope that each board member can make a decision for their district as to how they would want to approach their community conversation.
Chris?
I think member Vice Chair Porter brings up a really excellent point. So if I might, just kind of a hybrid of these two, to where maybe in the very beginning of the school year, we each have our individual conversations where we can really kind of drill down into the things that are unique to our neighborhoods and that we represent. But perhaps after the calendar year, then we might have a kind of a board meeting that doesn't have a particular agenda, but could be this combined community conversation where, we can all be there. We'll have maybe just a small panel, and then we can break out and have all of these department heads there available. That way we're only doing it one night and not 7.
Right.
So let me try to summarize what I hear as the marching orders for the chair and the vice chair and Dr. Hargens in figuring out how to come up with a proposal for action here. I think there are 2 broad categories of community conversation that are needed. One probably relates to the big topics that are going on at any moment. The discipline superintendent summits are a good example of that. It was really important to have an opportunity for the knowledgeable leaders within the district to be there and in discussion, and the community to have an opportunity to give real input beyond the scope that is possible at a board meeting or one-on-one with individual board members. And it was also important for the board members, speaking for myself at least, to be able to listen and participate in much greater depth than we can get into in our individual understandings. And there are other topics on the horizon. I would call out, for example, facilities, where Dr. Razor did a great job of sort of inventorying the state of need and the cost of maintenance of some of our older facilities. And if we're going to do something big in terms of renewing our physical plant, we're going to have the opportunity to have real meaningful conversation with the community. And I don't mean to be gloom and doom, but if the future proves to be one for the next few years where Frankfurt is really focused on filling the retirement system gap and doing that by reducing operating funding for our school system, we may be in a different financial picture. I hope we're not, but those look like where the arrows are going. And if we get into that, we have to have real conversation with our different constituencies about, how can Louisville support Louisville regardless of what happens in the rest of Kentucky. So those may not be the things, there will be surprises, but the one category is sort of topical, in-depth conversations with the community, where the board members really are beneficiaries of the learning almost. And then the other is ones where the board members can bring the leadership into their neighborhoods, into their parts of the city. And so I guess what I suggest is we put this to Dr. Hargens. I think Allison Martin, Jonathan Lowe, others can help and come with a solution for us. What do we do that actually will be constructive here and an improvement? Because those are, make sure we don't spend any extra time, but let's make it a whole lot better. The other thing is, and this was going to be my second point, but Steph, you already introduced it. It's been very clear in both my conversations one-on-one with many of you and in some of our conversations in other environments that there is at least a majority of this board that says we should not be meeting so often. We're killing ourselves and we're killing our employees by meeting every 2 weeks. We're flying too low to get our arms around the strategic input. And my read is that there is a clear demand for monthly formal meetings and to use that time that is available for things like the deeper conversations, deeper learning of what's going on, and to give the leadership team the opportunity to prepare for, monthly in-depth reports so that we can monitor the real trends of what is happening. And the body language here is something that is worth exploring. I'm sorry to pick on Board Member Hadaway, but I think sad reality is at the current run rate of how much time we all have to put in, no one with a full-time job and small children at home and no flexibility in controlling their own calendar can possibly serve on this board. And that is unjust to the citizens of Louisville, and we have to make a change. And again, I'm seeing body language that says the board is at least open to entertaining that, so I will take it as a to-do to work with the superintendent to come up with a calendar that will, again, reduce the frequency of the formality. We've got an enormous burden of regulatory compliance stuff. We are regulated just like we only had one school in Jefferson County. All this approve every $5,000 change order and all that craziness is something we got to figure out how to do. But we are going to take up coherence in the agenda along the lines that Ms. Horn said. So those are my two contributions to the planning calendar discussion. We'll come back with something that we can debate and digest. Obviously, we won't take any action until the board agrees that it's the right thing to do. But Lisa, you want to comment?
Well, I have one more, sort of, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
another kind of jumbo item, I guess,
Good.
for the planning
Bring it.
calendar. Back when we met with Dr. Alsbury, we talked about sort of looking ahead and populating this, the planning calendar with strategic priorities. And so that we would be able to look ahead and say, it's 6 months from now, we're going to be getting some sort of report from the superintendent and the appropriate staff, so that the board can effectively monitor where we're making progress, where we're not, what programs are working, what programs not so much, and to be able to look ahead and see all of that. And I think that getting that on the planning calendar now for the year ahead feels really important for us to be able to keep a handle on this giant strategic plan that we've got.
That's right. Yeah, and that's an example to me of why we need to take control of the meeting agenda, because the calendar populates, it autofills with all the regulatory dates, and then you look at the planning calendar and it's like, geez, we don't have any time left to do what's important, and we got to get control of that. So, all right, that's apologies for jumping in front of that, but what else do we have that we want to talk about on the planning calendar? Steph?
In the same line with Dr. Wilner, to try to relate the policies, we talked a little bit about Jonathan Lowe and making sure that he's really in that picture, so that if we're reviewing a topic, regardless, whatever it is, that policy then is brought up in a sense for the board members to note, hey, these are the 4 or 5 policies that this has to do with, because all of this is policy based. And then if it's not in a policy, that's the opportunity for a board member potentially to ask the question under the new protocol, should there be a policy here? So it just seems like I'd love to see not only the strategy tied in, but everything we're discussing, it should be related back to the policy. And Jonathan he knows those 5, there's 500 of them. So he does know them, like where is he? Like, you know them, you do, I know you do. But I think you could just relate them to whatever we're talking, that this has to do with it. I mean, that's the work of the board. So I think that would be exciting to see that just built into our agenda more than the calendar, but it has to do with it, because he'd have to know with plenty of time to know we're talking about this specific item on the calendar to be able to have the time to really do the work. And I think that our work would get better if we related it back to policy.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
I just would like to add a comment about academic achievement and the strategic plan that we have developed, because we could spend every meeting, every minute talking about policy. And it concerns me that we should spend more time talking about what's going on with our student. And if that's a policy, okay. But as we look at numbers and we talk about the achievement gap widening, and we talk about students not learning, I mean, if there's a policy that relates to that, great. But I would like for us to spend time talking about what we're doing to increase and focus on academic achievement, if that's what this district is to be about. We spent many meetings developing the strategic plan. the strategic plan speaks to learning for our students and how to make that happen. And if that can be connected, okay, but to not say that we need to talk about and see demonstrations and to discuss what we need to do to improve academic achievement, I guess and maybe I'm missing the point, won't be the first time, but I have to say that it's important to me that we talk about student learning, and if that is one policy or if it's 500 policies, so be it. But until we as a board can see demonstrations that the needle is going the other direction, then I just have to speak to that because I'm a little bothered that we are a governance body and we should have policies, but we also are here to look for academic achievement.
I appreciate both those comments, and I mean, I feel like I understand the gist of each of them. I don't see any conflict in them because the the strategy is how we discover the big rocks for what those monthly meetings will be framed up around, but the board acts by requiring compliance and activity, through its policy and budget setting norms. So I think I appreciate both the comments. I think we can, we do have to get focused, and we will. I mean, we just got ACT test data. We got an email on that as at least I saw it as I pulled into the parking lot. So we're coming back into the season of results data. So we're gonna be on it. So thank you. Others, Linda?
Oh, the only thing that I keep worrying about is the dashboard and the development of the dashboard and how often we're going to get a chance to look at it, and if it's two different dashboards, if there's a...
Why don't we ask Dr. Dossett to give us just a quick summary, because I think we're getting awful close to something to look at, right?
All right.
So, Ms. Duncan, the dashboard presentation is scheduled for September 13th for the board. So we have been working on a dashboard that will give the board information on student behavior, student attendance, and some staffing information. And so we're at the process right now of doing some data quality checks and making sure that we're testing it and understanding it for the end user. So that is scheduled for September 13th. And that's a real-time dashboard that you'll see information from daily in terms of what happened the previous day. It'll be uploaded that night.
Well, do we have it on our calendar that we know we can look ahead and say, okay, in February we're going to get this dashboard report, or in May we're going to get the dashboard?
Oh, I'm sorry. So this dashboard will be available that you can look at any time.
After September 13th.
After September 13th.
Okay.
So you can look at it Sunday night in your pajamas, or
Okay.
wherever you might be that you're interested in looking at the data. And we're also working on a slideshow opportunity where it might scroll through some key pieces of data before board meetings as well.
Okay, very good.
Great. Chris?
My concern, I guess, is trying to get on the calendar to get an idea of when we will have that report that the superintendent mentioned during our last board meeting about sexual education. I know that we've had several students come up and talk to us very eloquently about this subject, and it's something that we've been talking about for several months now, but I'd just like to get an idea of, I know there's lots of work to be done,
Right.
but when can we, a time frame of actually expecting that, or at least start seeing it on the calendar? I mean, is it? Because I haven't seen it lately.
Jonathan, is it?
It's October, okay. Okay, I'm sorry, I must have overlooked it. Thank
Great.
you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you all. Good discussion. Apologies again for missing the last board meeting, so that, but now I'm caught up. Is there a vote to receive the planning calendar? Is there a motion to receive the planning calendar? All right, Chris moves, Linda seconds, all in favor. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We next come to persons requesting to address the board on non-agenda items. There are 5 speakers who have signed up to speak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once, You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement, and at the end of the 3-minute time, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. Our first speaker is Casey Hoke. Casey Hoke. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Hello.
You may begin when ready, and your time will not start until you begin.
Hi, I'm Casey Hoke. I'm a graduate from DuPont Manual High School in 2015, and I am a second-year student at Cal State Polytechnic University in Pomona, California.
Awesome.
Now, in California, I feel safer than I ever did as a JCPS student. Why? I have rights as a transgender student that I did not have here. I have the right to use the bathroom in accordance with my gender identity I identify and present as, which is male, even though documents indicated female at birth. While at Manual High School, I faced backlash for using the male restroom because it would draw negative attention to the school, and was even asked what operations I had done to my body to transition, which was completely inappropriate. I didn't speak out, however, like many students, for fear that I would face even more trouble for something I needed to do every day, take 2 minutes out of my day to use the restroom. Thus, I was told to use a restroom segregated from others and away from classroom areas like I was a taboo subject. Meanwhile, at this time, Atherton High School was making progressive changes to include transgender students and to make sure they got to use the restroom in accordance to their identity. This has since been applauded without any issue. But what about the rest of JCPS? Where would I be required to use the restroom now in a JCPS school? The district needs a clear answer for transgender students, one that echoes Thomas Aberley's at Atherton High School at every single school in the district. Just like Atherton, other schools and districts have followed suit in allowing trans students to use the restroom of their identity. In June 2015, Media Matters contacted officials from 12 of the largest school districts in the US with gender identity protections and asked whether they had experienced any incidences of harassment or inappropriate behavior as a result of allowing transgender students to access facilities they are comfortable with. The answer from each district, 0 incidences. Now, unfortunately, just yesterday, if you heard the news, a Texas federal judge blocked the Obama administration's guidance on accommodating transgender students in the same way that Atherton currently does. Meaning, school districts can just block students like me from using the restroom they feel safest in. Now, JCPS, I am asking you to make it easier for students like me in your schools and to make it a district-wide policy to allow transgender students to use the restroom they feel safest in. I feel so much safer being protected in California than I ever did in JCPS. It shouldn't have to be that way for current and future students. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hoke. Our next speaker is Sherry Miley. Sherry Miley. Thank you for being with us tonight. You'll have 3 minutes and 1 bell after 2.5 and 2 after 3. You may either sit or stand, whatever your preference.
Hello, Dr. Hargan. I kept my promise, if you can remember, but hello to all the board members. Also to all the people that are attending.
They can't hear you.
Hello?
Sorry?
They can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. You need to speak a little more into the microphone so that we can broadcast out to the public.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Hello, Dr. Hargan. I did keep my promise. If you can remember, also I want to say hello to all the board members and all the wonderful people that are attending here tonight. In addition to the wonderful speaker we just had, I want to say thank you to the press and all those involved in all this. There is a presentation I presented to Norfolk Public Schools, and it is a program that is in a lot of vocational high schools already. It's another option for students to go into career goals. They might be a girl that wants to be a nun or a lieutenant colonel in the United States Marine Corps. Whether the boy or girl wants to be a priest, boy or girl wants to be a nun, whether somebody wants to be a janitor, whatever it is, there's a Chuck Norris and his wife that established a program that's been in the Beltway of Shenandoah County in Virginia. There's a lot of high schools that already initiated. ChuckNorris.com, there's a lot of resources there to initiate this program in the school, so students have an option to be pastor, minister, a counselor, religious counselor, whatever the choice is. There's opening doors, and I really appreciate you listening. I hope you're looking through the same lenses as I am. I took my glasses off, but yes, I do have lenses. Dr. Jones, I did email you. If you could get that to your network through your emails, I'd appreciate that very much. But thank you so much for letting me present this tonight. God bless you.
Thank you for speaking to us. We appreciate it. Our next speaker is Tara Lavelle. Tara Lavelle. Is Tara Lavelle here? Apologies if I'm mispronouncing. Okay. Next speaker is Aaron Corbillo. Corbillo, I'm sorry.
There's a core below here.
Core below here. That's good. I'm hopeful I will remember that. Thank you. All right. You know you have 3 minutes. 1 bell after 2.5, 2 after 3. Thanks.
I apologize that this is going to have to be more blunt than I would like. But when you're forced to consolidate 3 years of frustration and unfilled promises into 3 minutes, all you can do is be blunt. As a parent of a JCPS student and a taxpayer, I am here to express my growing lack of confidence in our current superintendent's leadership. You spoke at a state PTA conference about the importance of parents being involved. Your actions around creating the community advisory team made up of half JCPS administrators and other half business leaders, excluding the parent voice, shows us that you did not mean what you said. You claim that JCPS values every employee, but the way negotiations were handled and have been handled with teachers and staff tell us another story. You said that teachers' voice was valued, but teachers and bus driver voices were initially excluded from the code of conduct meetings. You claim our district is transparent, yet there were gross misrepresentations in reporting bus incidents and the use of restraints with students. Words mean nothing when your actions are the opposite. These actions do not earn the trust as parents, as many of us have no choice but to entrust our children to you, because unless you can afford private school or to homeschool, participation in JCPS is state mandated. Do you have any idea how hard it is to be required to send your child to a place every day in which you do not have complete confidence? I do, and I wish that on no one. We have lost multiple cabinet and upper administration positions. We have lost half of our area superintendents in just the last 15 months. We have a bus driver shortage. We cannot find enough teachers to come to work and stay in our district. At the end of the last school year, my son's school lost half their English department and the entire math department. So even though you are paying them on average $8,000 more than comparable districts, this track record shows that qualified educators and staff still don't want to work for this district. Our district is hemorrhaging talent from the bottom to the top, and our children are the ones that are paying the ultimate price. This cannot continue. We need a superintendent that people flock to instead of flee from. We need someone who listens to parents and teachers, not just business owners and internal administrators. We need someone who can lead with honesty and authenticity, transparency, but still be humble enough to admit and take ownership of mistakes that are made and ensure those mistakes don't happen again. I and many other parents have not gotten that from our current superintendent over the last 3 years. So I have to ask, how long must we continue to make a mistake just because we have spent a lot of time and money making it? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, is Rob Matthew. Rob, you're familiar with the timing. Welcome.
Okay. First day of school this year, my daughter sent me a picture from her bus. There were people standing and sitting on the floor in an overcrowded bus, one of 2 from Noah and Manual to the Burks compound. I immediately called the compound and expressed my concern about the safety of an overcrowded bus. I spoke to a Brandy there who listened politely to my complaint, provided no excuses, and said she would be looking into the matter with her supervisor. About 20 minutes later, my daughter texted me that her bus was going a completely different route home than in previous years. I called the compound back and again reached Brandy. She explained the route home had changed so that the bus dropped off its last students closest to the compound. She also indicated that the transportation staff had reviewed the bus situation at Noah Manual, determined that the amount of students that identified as needing transportation was less than those that actually showed up to take the bus. She indicated they would have an extra bus the next day and be working on new routes to better address this situation, and she was true to her word. That same day, JCPS was in the news for dealing with multiple buses trapped in a terrible traffic jam. Multiple staff members worked to formulate a plan to get students off the bus, hydrated and cooled off, and to their parents safely. This is a stark contrast to previous years. I was here on a disastrous first day when there were numerous transportation issues and kids were hours late getting home. And the response of Dr. Hargan's predecessor was more interested in throwing staff members under a bus than getting kids on a bus. So I want to thank you for your efforts, praise your staff, and hope that in the wake of contentious staff issues and relations, we all recognize the tremendous efforts and caring of JCPS staff members to do the right thing and take care of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our speakers on non-agenda items for the evening, and I have been advised that I made a mistake and skipped over board reports. I apologize for that omission. Are there reports from board members that we wish to make? Okay, Lisa has submitted a written report, for which we thank you. Anybody else? Chuck?
I followed the good example of Dr. Wilner. Mine's written as well.
Oh, man, you guys are putting us all to shame. Thank you very much. Okay, Diane?
Wanted to quickly give a thank you to the staff, JCPS staff. On August the 14th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we had a water pipe that burst at Foster Traditional. And from 3 p.m. Sunday until 2 a.m. Monday morning, we had 10 to 12 JCPS trucks at that school shoveling, mopping up water, resetting the HVAC system. Rob Tanner was there, Dr. Razor was there, Principal Gunn was there, and the next day the staff was there, making sure that the students had a great opportunity for learning. And you know, a lot of times we talk about what we don't do well, and we don't spend time thanking people for doing their job. I get that. But to be at a school from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning to make sure that we could have a place for 600 elementary schools, students to have school as much as normal, I just want to say thank you, JCPS, Dr. Razor, your staff. Thank you to the people that came in extra to make that happen, because folks don't have to do that. It was a real team effort. I had an opportunity. Dr. Hargans was there. I was there twice. I tried to bring water. You brought water, food. So we don't stop long enough to thank people for doing great things. So because of you, we were able to have school the next day for 600 students. So I wanted to say that. And the other thing I would like to say is on Tuesday, August the 30th, I'm having my community conversation at Foster Traditional, the same school where the water pipe burst. And from 6 to 6:30, we'll have refreshments, and from 6:30 to 7:30, we will have a community conversation. So I extend the invitation for anyone that would like to come. And the other thing that I would like to say, this is really not a report, this is just a summation of what we saw tonight from our friends in Fayette County and the students. Congratulations to them, and thank them for being here tonight. And since that time, I've gotten multiple texts about next steps. So Dr. Hargans, we're going to throw the ball to you as to next steps. But thank everyone that showed up tonight to hear about the Carter Woodson Academy and potential plans for as we move forward with the Du Bois Academy. And I think that completes everything. But my big piece was thank you to the staff and the community conversation on next Tuesday from 6 to about 7:30 at Foster Traditional School. And I'm sorry I did not write my report.
That's all right. Others? I have just two quick items. First, I want to mention that Vice Chair Porter received an award from the Lincoln Foundation this past week, and we are very proud of her work, not only within the JCPS family, but in the broader community, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that, so thank you very much for that. And second, I just want to call out the quality of the work sessions recently, the quality of the reporting. You know, the public kind of sees the formal board meeting, is there motion, is there second, blah, blah, blah part. But a lot of the real work of the board goes on, in the afternoons and in some of the other times when we get together just to learn and debate before we're ready to bring things. Both of today's sessions were really good examples of that, and I know this board has been hard on the staff of the organization sometimes, demanding better and expecting better in the quality, but if we're going to demand better, we also should acknowledge when, at least for me, I left with a state of excitement and clear learning from each of those two. So well done on that. So with that, I think it is time for me to read the magic words about, okay, the board will now conduct a closed session as permitted by KRS 61.8101E of the Open Meetings Act for the purpose of a discussion relating to collective bargaining negotiations. Is there a motion? Okay, Dr. Wilner moves. Is there a second? Okay, Steph, thank you very much. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously, so we will now adjourn into executive session. Thank you very much.